It was a bad day. My father had died suddenly. I was walking home from visiting Mum, emotionally exhausted. I wished I did not believe in God, but I did. I wished I was not a vicar, but I was. I wished I could just disappear, which was rather difficult. You may know about bad days. Not the same as that, but your equivalent. Maybe that's you today, ready to throw in the towel. The sort of day that makes you either aggressive within, the fear takes over, or wanting to flee all the problems, or maybe just emotionally frozen. Fight, flight, or freeze. At such times as these, maybe one or more of these thoughts crowd in on you. You maybe think, I'm so small. I can't do anything about this. This is so powerful, I'm helpless. I'm such a small cog in such a large world. Is the world going to change to get me out of this mess? I don't know if Peter felt quite that bad after the night fishing with no fish at all. That maybe his business was going to go under, who knows? And if we don't feel I'm so small, perhaps we think, I'm so weak. I don't have the energy for this. Why bother carrying on? I've nothing left to give. Others are so much better than me as well. I'm so weary. They've got so much better talents. Or maybe we think, what difference can I make anyway? All my efforts, they'll turn to dust soon enough. All those things I'm passionate about, how long will they last anyway? Who will remember me in 50 years? We talk about fulfilling our passions these days, but what will that matter in 50 years? Or maybe we say, I'm facing this alone. Others may be around me, but what can they do to help? I might as well be alone. Who can get me out of this? Who else has faced this? No one can understand. No one can help. I'm not meaning to depress you, but I'm reminding you of what you may feel from time to time, and what for others is daily life, which is the perfect place to begin Luke 5. One thing we need to remember is that in the Gospels, the word for salvation and the word for health are the same word. So the beginning of Luke 5 is about salvation, but it might as well be about health. Yes, it refers to the number of converts there will be, but we can also take it personally. So let's think about these fears again. Fear 1, I'm so small. So here Jesus stands by the vast lake of Galilee with its storms. And then he comes and sits in the boat and starts to teach, which reminds me of the wonderful hospitality Mandy and I received in India. Welcomed into a home, we would sit down and share the scriptures and then have a splendid meal. Something we shared then, have shared here in Harlow, and continue to share and delight in. When you say to someone, let's sit down, you're changing the conversation. You're saying, this is going to take a while. I'm giving you all my attention. Let's be serious. And in this story, Jesus sits down with the disciples, with us, and says all these things to us. And for Luke, who has told us the Christmas story in Luke 2, about Jesus, as it were, coming and sitting down in the world, coming down from earth to heaven, who is God and Lord of all, the same one continues to sit down with us. Jesus is sitting down with you. Do you talk to him about those overwhelming events? He's wanting to have that conversation. Go back to that dark fear. I'm so small. You may feel small sitting down with Jesus, but Jesus puts you in an immeasurably bigger world, in which all of the sudden single events, every word, every feeling matters. Jesus doesn't make you huge, but he makes every tiny thing important, because it's important to him. God, the Creator, is sitting down with you. Fear 2, I am weak. And Jesus says to Peter, come on then, let's see this bigger world I've been talking to you about. Put out in the deep water, let down your nets. Yes, I know you fished all night, I know you're the professional, but Jesus, just humour me, will you, Peter? Try following me, let's see what happens. Well, you know the expression, set up to fail. First coined as recently as 1969 to describe workplace bullying. The boss who never stops interfering, keeps back a vital piece of information, undermines your work, makes you want to look weak, a failure, so they can make you all the more dependent on you or give you a cause for sacking them. Well, what Jesus says to Peter looks like a classic example of setting someone up to fail. Come on, Peter, come and catch some fish. And Peter thinks, well, I tried all night. And he thinks, those nets, he says, they're night nets. Because the fish can see the linen in the daytime. They won't come anywhere near them. The nets they used. Anyway, Peter decides to humour Jesus. And here we come across the mystery expressed in 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul says, as we heard, I worked harder than any, though it was not I, but the grace of God that was with me. This is the mystery. We think we're doing something, but when it's inspired by the Lord, it's not you or I, but the Spirit, God's Spirit, who does it through us. We all crave independence. One of the most popular sayings in the world, on the films, in education, is, you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Well, I'm sorry to say that's a lie. To start at the stop, you can't stop dying. And secondly, it almost always will involve other people as well. And maybe that is why there is so much mental health amongst younger generations. But it is wonderful knowing that you can't do something, but you're doing it anyway in the strength of God's Spirit, with another, with Jesus. Peter pauses. He takes Jesus' instructions on trust. And behold, what happens next is the grace of God. A wonderful catch. So we get to fear free. What difference can I make? And it turns out now that Peter has got a very different kind of problem. It's not that he hasn't got any fish, he's got far too much. He's overwhelmed. He's got masses of fish. The boat is overwhelmed. The nets are overwhelmed. James and John bring another boat and they can hardly get the fish in those as well. Jesus says to Peter, look at this big world I've invited you into. Look what can happen when the Spirit is at work. Peter is astonished. And it's too much for Peter. And he falls to his knees. I'm the wrong guy. I'm just a fisherman. Leave me alone. I'm out of my league. The key moments of Peter's life. Do you have those key moments? Have there been those key moments? Maybe this is a key moment. When you say, what difference can I make? And you discover that with God, an enormous difference. And before Peter has time to think, looking at this massive haul of fish, Jesus is at him again. Peter, this is just a dry run. From now on, it's not going to be fish. It's going to be people. You've seen nothing yet. And so we come to fear 4. When you think, I'm the only one going through this, no one else understands. No one else can face what I face. But Jesus sat down with Peter. Jesus sits down with you and says, come with me into a bigger world. I know all about it. I faced everything you faced. I even went to the cross. But look, it led to resurrection. Do you think you're too small, not important enough? But you have God himself sitting down with you, to whom you can talk, which is what we call prayer. And so we see that God is bigger than your fears. But get ready. Christ is there tomorrow in your workplace. Christ is there today when you get home with that difficult neighbour. Christ is there in that thing that freezes your heart and mind. Christ is there in that panic attack. Christ is there in the funeral parlour. And Christ knows what you're going through and knows the one way through. For the one who sits down with us is the resurrected Christ. You may think you are unworthy, out of your league, too sinful. but it does not depend on you. It does not depend on your faith. It is just true that Jesus is with you, and he sits down with you. As Peter discovered, Peter had no faith, but it was true that Jesus was with him. It all depends on Christ. It is all gift. It is all grace. And Christ is onto you. He's on your case. And in the power of the Spirit, you are going to do unbelievable things.